Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your newest source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm here, as always, with my dad, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just enjoying a get-right game against the Chicago Bears.
Always doing better after a win than a loss. You know,
Yes.
I'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day of the week. And that is what we are here to break down with you guys today. The Packers have defeated the Bears by a score of 27-10. Pretty close to your score prediction, Dad. I believe you had it at 27-17, you know?
Yes,
close enough. But yeah, so we are here to break down the Packers-Bears game as usual. We will be doing this every Sunday night and releasing it on Sunday nights if you guys want to check us out throughout the season. You can also find us on Twitter at FatherSonPacker or on YouTube at Father-Son Packers Podcast. Please come give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. It would really just help us get our numbers up, and we would really appreciate it if you like the content we bring to you guys twice a week, every week.
You can also find us on Spotify or
Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find podcasts, you will be able to find us. And our Twitter is just a great place for updates on when we're releasing episodes, tweeting out news that are released by the Packers and Packers beat reporters, stuff like that. So if you want to just give us a follow, that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. But Dad, without further ado, do you want to get into this little breakdown?
Sure. Start with our kind of gut reactions.
Yeah, so every Sunday night we're going to start with our gut reactions, which are kind of just like how we felt about the game. You were saying, though, you wanted to start off with how your gut's feeling? How's your gut feeling?
It was getting a little bit knotted at the goal line. And then, so I thought we'd still most likely win. But it was nice to breathe a sigh of relief once it was officially held up as he was short of the goal line.
Yeah.
I didn't really have to worry about it anymore.
I mean, we'll go into that play a little bit more. And why not? Let's go into it now. But I was honestly thinking in the moment, not to be dramatic, I was like, this could be the play that defines the Packers season. If they don't get this and they lose this game, the season is not going well.
If they lost that game, that would have been something.
I don't think at all.
Yeah.
And also just to struggle that much if they had given up that 4th and inches right there. And I don't know, did you think he was in? They did review it. They didn't find anything conclusive. I thought he did not make it. I thought it was pretty clear he was short. Maybe I'm just a homer, but that's at least how I felt about it.
I thought there was a good chance the nose of the football may have reached.
You hear that, folks? An honest man. An honest man.
What I did
could
see
not
is
be
that
me.
Somebody searched for an honest man with a lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Who's got the lantern, the honest man or the searcher? I phrased that poorly.
I would hope the searcher, or else you might not find him. But anyway, continue.
But one thing I would say about that play is that Reed held up very nicely at the point of attack there.
They officially gave the stop to Preston.
I think they gave the
Dean?
tackle to Campbell.
They changed the scoring after the review.
Oh, they changed the scoring after.
But I'm not sure which way they changed it. You might still be right.
But I thought, I was just watching the play. Reed really held up right there at that point that Fields ended up going to prevent any push from the offensive line.
Yeah, and
that ultimately, I think, led to the tacklers to bring Fields to a stop.
Yeah, I think afterwards, after they reviewed it, they gave the stop to Preston Smith and Jerron Reed, actually, in the end. I know it was initially credited to Campbell, but I think they did switch it after review. But, the D-line stepped up when they had to. They were getting it run down their throats a little bit. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later. My personal gut reaction was... initially, I was like, wow, they kind of struggled with this one. They struggled a little more than I thought they would. I thought they'd win a little more handily. My score prediction was a little bit of a wider gap. But, it's nice to get a win. It's nice that the process for the game was good. They gave the ball to their good players, which is always a good thing. And the defense had its ups and downs. It seemed like once the ball started to move, the offense picked up momentum. The Bears offense, that is, picked up momentum very easily. But they did force quite a few 3-and-outs, which we will talk about going forward. But that's just kind of my gut reaction. Could have been better, but they got the win, which is all that matters. 1-1. Take it any way you can get it. But yeah, so that's our gut reactions for the game. Next thing we're going to do is a quick injury update. Normally, we're talking about players that got hurt during the game, some people returning. Thankfully, Dad, I don't think I saw anyone get hurt during this game, or no tweets about it at least.
Well, the one thing I would say is that Lazard left limping a little bit early, but then
he
came back on
and played well.
and made plays afterwards. So that seemed like it was okay. I was a little nervous that he was going to be out for the rest of the game when he was limping on the sideline, and maybe he got rolled up on as he was blocking for that play. And I didn't actually see what happened. That was just kind of my guess that maybe what could have happened to him is that he re-injured the ankle by getting rolled up on as he was a lead blocker. But
yeah,
he came back in,
especially with the ankle and how he he was pretty ginger getting off field, but he came back in and played well. So that's all you can ask for. But in terms of players returning, a lot of good news on the Packers front. Like you said, Alan Lazard back after missing week 1 with an ankle injury. Elton Jenkins, that's the biggest one, honestly. Elton Jenkins back. Matt LaFleur himself said that they would not have won this game without Elton Jenkins playing tonight, and I agree. He was a little rusty coming back at right tackle, but just to have another starter was nice. John Runyon also made his return and from concussion, so that left them with 4 of 5 preferred starters on the offensive line.
Yeah, and Elton coming back improved 2 separate offensive line spots just by Elton coming back. And so that was huge. And I think it did...
By that, you mean moving Newman to right guard, improving right guard, and then having Elton at right tackle, improving right tackle.
Sending Newman to guard, Hansen to the bench, and Elton to tackle.
Hansen is a fine backup. He is Diet Lucas Patrick, but he should not be starting. He's not as good as Lucas Patrick.
He is break glass in case of emergency backup center and guard.
Somehow still ahead of Sean Ryan. But anyway.
He is a poor man's Lucas Patrick.
That's what I'm saying. Is Diet Lucas Patrick.
Lucas Patrick from like 3 years ago.
Yes.
Not even Lucas Patrick now.
Not Bears Lucas Patrick?
Or let's say last year's Packers Lucas Patrick.
No, he's not. He's not as good as that. He's more like second year Lucas Patrick, third year Lucas Patrick than last year Lucas Patrick. But those are the returns. I do think Elton Jenkins is such a big deal. It seems like he got through the game, knock on wood, without any re-aggravations. We'll hopefully see during practice this week. Hopefully he's practicing still and everything is good. But just such a big boost getting him back out there and having a tackle at right tackle.
And earlier than we were, thought was the chance a week ago, when the scuttlebutt was that Bakhtiari and Jenkins would be out week 2 as well.
Yeah,
so
that was the other injury thing.
Minds over Bakhtiari not playing.
Well, that was
the
other injury thing that we didn't talk about. Is Bakhtiari again missed this week? That is what Ryan Wood said would happen.
But
last
it's what
week.
we
So people
should
being
have expected.
People being surprised should not be surprised. This is what the plan was.
Right.
You can argue whether or not he'll be back week 3. We don't really know. We hope, but wouldn't hold your breath, I guess. But that's the injury report. Mostly good news. In fact, pretty much all good news, knock on wood, that we know of so far. Seems like they're getting a little bit healthier, at least healthier than week 1. But now, Dad, do you want to get down to the meat and potatoes?
Sure, yeah. Go with our game breakdown. You want to start with offense?
Yeah, we'll start with offense. So pretty much how this goes is we each pick one good thing, one bad thing for the offense and defense, and we-fence. I refuse to call it the other name anymore because when I did, Amari Rodgers immediately fumbled the ball. We will talk about that later. I am only calling it we-fence from now on. I will put $1 in the swear jar whenever I say the name that shall not be mentioned. But like you said, Dad, let's start with the offense. Do you want to begin with your good thing or bad thing?
Well, let's start with the good things. Shall I go?
Okay.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
I had a couple things, and this, one of them you're going to expand on more, but
maybe just start with the second one then, and I'll touch the first one in my own.
So first I was going to say about Rodgers, it looked like he was really dealing through the middle of the game when they essentially took control through the second quarter and the beginning of the third.
Yeah.
And he ended up completing passes to 8 different pass catchers. I can't say receivers because they weren't all receivers. And none of them had more than 4 targets or more than 3 catches.
Really spreading the ball around.
Yeah, really spread the ball around, really taking advantage of different parts of the field. I think he had fewer plays where he held on to the ball too long compared to last week. And interestingly, all of the sacks were in the first half. And I think that may also be so that the Bears had 3 sacks of Rodgers. And they were all in the first half. And on 2, one of them derailed a drive, but the other 2 they still got points despite getting sacked. And then I think maybe the offensive line was settling in a little bit better as they got their rhythm. Let's see.
I think it's interesting that on plays where Rodgers targeted receivers, like you were saying, he did target a lot of them. But by my count, he was 13 of 16 when targeting wide receivers. I know that you said pass catchers, but specifically wide receivers. He spread it out really well, and he was hitting those receivers 13 to 16. That's excellent.
Even on the third, that first drive of the game where they ended up with the field goal, it was a little clunkier because they had some more third downs they had to go for, but they were able to get a third down conversion to Lazard. The nice third down pass to Aaron Jones on the sideline, where it was a beautiful touch pass, and then a great catch by Jones.
Shout out,
Though he did,
that'll be what I talk about.
Though he did miss Dobbs and something the announcers, Collinsworth.
That little curl in the middle.
When he ended up taking the sack there. Though that was already 3rd and 15, I think that. But that was what I had for the good thing. The other thing I was kind of leading is that I thought that Jones looked better than Dillon this week.
Yes,
doing
this
excellent
week.
work
and
running on the left side of the offense.
And that ties into my good thing for this game, which is just Aaron Jones is that guy. He's that guy. He had 15 carries for 132 yards. That's 8.8 a touch, or 8.8 a carry, and a touchdown. He had 3 receptions on 3 targets for 38 yards and a touchdown. 9 of his 18 touches went for first downs or touchdowns. That's excellent. He was just as efficient as last week, or like almost as efficient as last week, but they actually gave him the ball. He was easily the best player on the field for either team in a game with a back-to-back MVP in it. Aaron Jones completely took over this game, and the Bears had no answers for him. He was running pretty much all rampant. He was running rampant. He was running left, running right, going up the middle, outside, touch passes, shovel passes. There was clearly a concerted effort to get him the ball this game because they were getting him the ball any way they could. They realized their mistake from last week. And so that's also, I think, a little gold star for the coaching staff. I think last week, like looking back on it, I think I put most of the blame on the coaching staff for being unprepared for the game. And I think this game plan really shows that they looked last week. They were like, we really effed up. That's on us, guys. That's my bad.
Yeah.
And they actually gave the ball to their best players, I think. And you had something interesting to say about Jones going left versus right, that you felt like he was kicking left a lot easier.
So that and he was getting to the second level very quickly going left. It was interesting that they really kind of split the work between Jones and Dillon. I think Jones had 18 touches and Dillon had 19, so really evenly cut. I think Dillon had, in a lot of the plays that are called for him, or where he's looking for daylight, he was doing like a quick cut back to the right side, and there wasn't often much space. The other thing I wanted to repeat was something that, and I think he was often going like A gap on either side, occasionally going to the B gap, and Jones was sometimes going around the tackle on the left. But they did say
Jones is a lot more prone to like actually bounce it outside than Dillon.
Yeah. But yeah, it was one thing they said during the broadcast is that Jones leads the league in percent of runs up the middle.
Oh, interesting.
Jones
does or
no?
Dillon
Sorry,
does?
I missed.
Okay, I was going to say Dillon, right?
Yeah,
I was going to say I think I do remember that it was. Dillon.
I just straight up said that wrong. I was trying to segue into the talking about Dillon.
I lied.
And sorry, Dillon. Not Jones, but Dillon has been leading the league since the beginning of last year in percent of runs up the middle,
which makes sense. Big body,
yep.
Get him moving up the field. But yeah, that was my good thing. The 9 of 18 going for first downs or touchdowns is just kind of insane to me.
That's crazy, yeah.
Right? Like he was just biting off chunk yardage, and this, like the success rate on those runs was crazy. I mean, I think he had one play. And it was in the fourth quarter where he was stopped in the backfield. And every single other one, he was getting positive yardage and chunk gains.
I remember noticing that because he was at like 9.6 yards or 9.7 yards a carry. And then he was at 8.8 because he had that negative 2-yard run which is
Yeah.
one of his last runs, maybe his last run of the game.
Good. Just take him out.
And then Dylan,
I'm
Dylan
surprised
did a good
we
job.
didn't see Patrick
Dylan
Taylor.
was a nice finisher.
Yeah.
As getting them out of the shadow of the goal line and converting some first downs late to be able to run at the clock.
I don't have the exact numbers, but they ran so much more pony package, aka 2 running back with Jones and Dillon on the field this week than they did last week. And they ran so much more of it.
That first touchdown, I think it was the first touchdown, with Dillon was a lead blocker for Jones.
Oh, great play. Was that the first one or the second one? That was the
that
second
might be the
touchdown.
second one, because the first one I think was when Myers crushed whoever it was
Get
in the
out
second
in
level.
space, baby. Get them big boys moving.
That was nice. And then, but yeah, I guess it was the second one where Jones was the lead blocker on the right hand side that Jones ran in. Yeah, the first one was when Myers got to the second level and buried some poor slob.
Yes, but good on the coaching. Get your best players on the field. Good on Jones. That's my good thing for the offense. I was pretty pleased with the offense. Mostly they ran the ball so well. And I know it's just the Bears, but you got to beat the teams on your schedule. And they did that. Going on to the bad things on offense, we can do mine first because mine's a bit of a smaller one. But mine specifically is the timing on the quick out routes with the younger receivers. That kind of chemistry is not there, and I think kind of demonstrates a larger lack of chemistry between Rodgers and the younger receivers. But you can really tell in the quick outs. Those are supposed to be just extensions of the run game and are supposed to be free at least 2 to 5 yards. And right now they're incomplete. He had a quick out to Christian Watson today that he missed on, or they didn't connect on, rather. And he had one to Dobbs last week that they didn't connect on. And on both of them, it did seem that the receivers turned late. And
that was the one to...
This
was the one to Watson on the right-hand side?
Yes,
and was been like right at the line of scrimmage,
and both were to the right hand side to Dobbs and Watson. But like I was saying, I think a lot of this does have to do with the fact that, according to an article written by Jared Dubin of CBS Sports in December of 2021 about that year, Rodgers had the fastest average time to throw on quick strike throws at 1.75 seconds. And so what I think is probably happening is these rookie receivers are more used to playing with Jordan Love in training camp and their college quarterbacks who are not nearly as quick on these quick game throws, and so they're turning late. And I think that that's probably going to be an easy fix. Take less steps to get to your route on the out routes. It looked like they were also a little further upfield than Rodgers might like because the ball was a little short on them, and I have a hard time believing that's like entirely on Rodgers. I think it's more of a timing thing. But I think that that's something to watch because that was such a big part of their offense in previous years under LaFleur. And I think they're going to need to clean that up because those two guys, Dobbs and Watson, are the most dynamic players they have with the ball in their hands besides the running backs. And so they're going to need to find a way to get them the ball in space, and those quick outs are usually easy, but right now they're kind of like pulling teeth.
Yep. So, yeah, those are ones where they need to get it's supposed to be easy yards, and they're
exactly
not getting them yet.
But I'm not overly worried. I just think it's something to look at because I think it should get fixed and the offense could hypothetically be even better. But what was your kind of bugaboo on offense that you felt like they weren't doing well?
The biggest problem I saw, at least the two basically blunders they made on exchanges.
Yep. This was the easy one.
Where they're just cruising. They're burying the Bears.
They are
Bears
absolutely
haven't done anything for
battering
like
and
a quarter
bullying.
and a half, and the Packers are scoring on, multiple possessions in a row, I think, at one point. And then they have and both times they've already driven away. The individual drives are cruising too, and then Dillon and/or Rodgers, one or both of them goes the wrong way, and they basically almost run into each other, fumble and lose that fumble.
Rodgers said after the game that he went the wrong way.
That it was his fault.
Yeah.
And then the other was the snap.
Which
first
Rodgers,
I thought it was a terrible snap, and then the replay is like, it hit
Christian Watson right in the arm.
Right in the arm as he's doing the jet sweep, and they were
But
lucky
Rodgers
to recover
did
that
say
one.
Rodgers also said after the game that one was on Myers because he had the snap count wrong, and the ball should not have gotten snapped then.
Yeah, it's clearly there was something wrong at the time.
There was something
They were
wrong,
lucky to recover that, though it torpedoed the drive. But that wasn't the and so that was one on Myers, and he also had a miss.
He got
beat bad by the on one play.
he had an up and down game
by the defensive tackle.
Yeah, like he had that really awesome block in space on the touchdown run, and then he had one where he got abused on trying to trying to hit a reach block, and he didn't make any contact with the guy initially. He just tried to get to the side, and the guy just went straight upfield and tackled. I think it was
which
Dylan
was
for
kind
a
of
loss.
like a replay of what Za'Darius did last week.
Yeah, he's got to
Where
be
if
more
you've seen
cognizant.
all the stills of everybody was shooting, is like it looks like he's blocking Runyon.
Exactly, he's got to be a little more cognizant that those guys are just firing up the field. Yeah, but I think more so for those two things. I think my problem was less so the errors and more so the subsequent team-wide reaction to those errors. It felt like as soon as Dylan fumbled the ball, the defense started crumbling a little.
They really, they let
they just lost the plot as a whole team for like 3-4 drives there and almost blew the whole game based on just like one small error. And the whole team just looks like they're completely despondent. And I'm just like, guys, you're up 14 points at home in the fourth quarter. Yes, you just had a fumble. They have the ball at the 40. It's like fine.
But you know how common this is, where you give a team life when they are just, nothing's going right, and all of a sudden then they have a chance. And we saw multiple of those this week. Where teams just blew leads and let their opponents back in.
In a week of blown leads, I'm glad we didn't fully blow it.
Yep.
That's fair. But I do think it's something where it's like, yes, the offense fumbled. Defense, get your butts out there and get a stop. Don't get it run down your throat, please. And I think that kind of transitions us well to the defensive side of the football with our positives and negatives. Do you want to start good or do you want to start bad? I think we should start bad so we can end good.
Okay, since we started good on offense.
And since I kind of... Yeah, we'll do a little bad sandwich. A little SH blank
some
teeth
really
sandwich.
Nasty filling in between two good slices of bread?
Yes.
Is that that seems to be the metaphor here.
Yes. South Harmon Institute of Technology sandwich.
It's been accepted.
It's been accepted. But anyway, tying into what I was just saying, I think my bad thing for the defense was the run defense. The Bears running backs, just all of them, mainly Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, that means, went for 8.4 yards per carry in this game and really kept the Bears in it. Two specific drives, the first drive of the game, which actually Matt LaFleur said they were having headset issues on and couldn't get the plays in. Make of that what you will. Who knows? And then the play late where they did stuff the Bears at the goal line. The Bears were just running it down their throats with I formations and just bullying them pretty much with a bad offensive line. So that's a little scary. And just to kind of put those 8.4 yards per carry numbers in kind of a frame of reference, that's more yards per carry than the running backs in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers ran for. They ran for 6.75 yards per carry, the running backs did, and Mostert ran for 7.6 yards per carry. So the running backs in this game, I know obviously time and score is very different, so it's not really the EPA per play is probably still very much in the San Francisco 49ers, that NFC Championship game favor. But I think it is kind of telling that that's how kind of porous the run defense was for a large majority of this game. And I know they still did have some 3-and-outs that we'll talk about, a good amount of 3-and-outs. But it felt like once the ball got rolling, the Bears only ran 41 plays today. But I think probably over 50% of those, maybe over 60% of those were in 2 drives. And so it was once the ball got moving, the ball just snowballed downhill and they just ran it and ran it and ran it and ran it. And I think that that's something that the Packers need to work on because the front played pretty well, I think. Aside from a couple drives and the running, but you can't win games like that against good teams if you're just going to get bullied up front.
Yeah, I think one thing that happened is a lot of those big yards were on the first two. Were confined. Were in those 2 possessions.
Yeah, and I think that
the first scoring
but that's
drive,
what I'm saying is once the ball kind of got moving, they just had so much momentum,
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say about that, what I had is that for my bet, like let Chicago dictate play and just run as they wanted. And I was trying to remember. It seemed like they opened in nickel. The Packers did on D.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they started with kind of. I remember somebody tweeting about it.
I don't think they ran a single 4-3 snap without Barnes out there.
And so they opened up sort of light boxes. Is that really what you wanted to do against this team? Who really they're going to run? I mean, maybe you set yourself up to let them run based on formation, which is maybe not the best idea.
It does seem like they just kind of. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, they just kind of let them run down their throats.
And then I was going to go on that your idea of like how they got started. I did go through a little bit of like how the Bears did depending on how they started their drives. So so their first drive they got TD. They got the touchdown
very easily. 7 plays for 71 yards. Like absolutely marched it down the field.
And their first play was a run for 4 yards. The second drive they tried to pass first. Got sacked for -5. 3 and out. The third drive, they only had they ran for just 1 yard. They tried just all runs. They ran for 1 yard, 3 and out. Third drive, an incomplete pass for no yards, 3 and out. And then the fourth drive, so they had 4 in a row here. The fourth drive, they ran the ball for 7, but then they tried to pass on second down and got sacked for -7. And then they ran for 9 and got a field goal. So the first play ran for 9, got a field goal. The next drive ran for 11 and got to the goal line. And then the final drive was just desperation mode throw-in and ended up with a pick. So, yeah, it seemed like it made a big difference on whether they tried to pass on one of the early downs or not, for whether their drives failed.
I mean, it ties back into the though when the Packers, like, if the Bears got momentum on offense, like they got like positive yards, a positive like game script within that drive, they were getting into like second and manageable, third and manageable. The Packers were just letting them move after that. They did not like sorry about that. They did not recalibrate at all to the new first down. It seemed like they got completely thrown for a loop at any point that the Bears got movement.
Right, and I think it's kind of bears out when you look at from drive to drive what happened depending on what their very first play was.
Yeah, and it just felt
or their first 2 plays, perhaps.
Yeah, and it just feels like it parallels the Packers team as a whole. Like when the Packers have momentum, everything's great.
They're front runner.
I was
glad.
It's annoying, but they are 100% a front runner.
I was glad they lost the
coin toss so they could defer.
So that we could get the ball first. I've been meaning to look this up. I know for like the first season or two, the Packers clearly did better when had
starting
the ball
with the ball.
With starting with the ball. And I don't know if that's borne out now that we're more than 3 seasons in.
But the thing is, no one takes the ball first anymore.
I
if
know.
They win the coin
and it
toss.
drives me bonkers.
No one does it. No one ever does it.
Stop paying attention to the league-wide trend when you have your own in-team trend that seems so obvious.
They're front runners. They're so much better with the lead.
Yeah,
until they pucker up. Until they pucker up with the lead and they start.
But most of the time, but they don't turtle.
They turtle a little. They turtle worse when they fall behind. They turtle a little when they fumble that ball today. They were starting to tighten up a little bit. You could feel it a little bit.
I was getting nervous, but I thought that I was like, okay, they're gonna. If the Bears score here, I think they're still probably gonna win. The numbers are still in our favor.
May the odds be ever in your favor. But it did feel like, I don't know, it felt like to me if the Bears scored there, the Bears were going to win. That's how I felt at least. If the Bears had punched that in, I thought the Bears might. I mean, I know we still have the ball. We're up 7. But all the vibes are not good.
That they were going to.
The vibes are terrible.
The vibes were they were going to turn it over the next possession?
Well,
is that what your vibes were?
It's just like, you know that up 7, they're not taking a shot play. They're running it 3 times.
I liked when they took that shot play to Watkins.
I loved it too, but
that was awesome.
They're going to turtle. They're going to 100% turtle. Well, I mean, there's no way of knowing. But I thought it was like, I was legitimate thinking, like I said earlier, when the ball was at that 1 yard line on 4th and goal, and they ran it and didn't get in. I was like, that was the Packers season right there. If they had not gotten that, I think the Bears would have won. They would be 0-2, and it would be absolute pandemonium in the Packers fan base.
I was not that pessimistic about this game. I was anxious, but I was not that pessimistic about this game.
I was that play, but when they lined up in shotgun instead of, I formation running it up the middle like they had done every single other time for a billion yards, I was like, ha. That's our sleeper agent, Luke Getsy, calling the plays. I love to see it.
It's like, I was grateful for that shotgun play there instead of just doing a quarterback sneak.
Yeah, and it seems like, I don't know. It seemed like they didn't really trust Fields today. Like, I don't know how you felt about that, but I mean, they only let him throw it.
Did they throw
70
like a
yards
dozen times, or how many?
Yeah, to be fair, the Packers held him to 41 total plays, but I don't know. The Bears were doing weird things on offense today, and it's tough to criticize them when you're running for 9 a carry. It's like, yeah, you probably should be running it every single time, but
ran for 9 a carry and threw for 6.5.
Yeah,
attempts.
Such a weird game for them. I mean, you can't say that the offense was necessarily like it wasn't great, but if you're averaging 9 a carry, it's like, what are we? I mean, why throw it? I guess, but I mean, they didn't win the game, so maybe they should have thrown it.
1970s and run a wishbone.
Exactly, just
have
triple
Herbert
option.
and Montgomery there at the same time.
Is it Air Force that runs the weird offense?
Oh, do they still do that? I know they kept doing that for a long time after everybody else stopped.
I think they still run the super weird like triple option like stuff. I think, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that. I'm not.
I know they continued it after almost every other D1 team had long since passed it by.
It's the traditionalist stats. The traditionalists. But anyway, we are going now to our good thing for defense. Do you want to talk about your good thing first, and I'll wrap up with mine?
Well, what I think is like, in terms of just sort of the bigger picture is how they just took control of the game with those 4 straight 3-and-outs and just put a stamp on it. I did like there were a couple missed tackles here and there during the Bears' big drives.
Yeah, Campbell was actually struggling. Campbell was struggling with his tackling.
He had a couple of those last week and a couple this week where he missed tackles.
After being the best tackler in the league,
he may have more missed tackles already this year than last year. I'm not sure. I think
100%.
The numbers.
It seemed like he only had like 1 missed tackle last year total. He was like the best tackler in the league last year, and he's struggling a little this year at least.
But there were a couple of plays on 3rd down, I think, where like Stokes
had a bounce back game. He had a really nice bounce back
wrapped up and tackled for like no yards after catch by I think it was EQ.
Yep.
And
they held Mooney
Campbell
to negative.
Campbell had one as well where he wrapped up the guy and brought him down.
They held Mooney to negative 4 yards. They held their number one receiver.
And I really liked the way
that
Stokes stuck with Mooney on the deep shot that they took.
Yep.
He was right on him.
That could have changed the game. I mean, he had no safety help over the top. Like the broadcast was saying, that's exactly what you want there if you're the Bears. You got one-on-one, their guy versus our guy. It's no safety help over the top, just a deep shot to your best player. Stokes
and from their perspective, it was their best player against our
number 2 corner,
not our number 1 corner.
Yeah, that's the shot for them. That's the play that they want. That's the opportunity they want. And
when
Stokes
the ball
was equal
getting
to
there,
it.
Stokes is right in position.
Yeah, I mean, there was no Stokes was like
really nice
between the ball and Mooney 100%. I mean, Fields kind of overthrew him by a lot and didn't really give him a chance for it. But
and I think Douglas had another one of those, tackle right after the catch for no.
Yeah, he was tackling well today. I think
they were
honestly,
doing
most
a pretty
of the team
good,
was tackling pretty good.
They did a pretty good job at preventing yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Though not such a good job at preventing yards after contact by the runners.
But to be fair, who yards after catch wise really scares you on the Bears? Like there's
I don't know. I don't know
there's
if
not
that's
really
strength there.
Yeah, there's not really like Mooney's a good route runner and he's a good deep threat. I don't know if he's the best like yak guy, And I could be wrong, but he doesn't. When I think of him, I don't think of him as a yak guy. I think of him as a route runner, deep shot guy. Good receiver though, and pretty impressive that they held him to negative 4 yards. Although they haven't really used him much at all, and they haven't really thrown the ball much at all. They also did a pretty good job against Komet, which I know. I mean, Komet didn't have a great week 1 either, but I mean, Packers generally have struggled against tight ends in the past, and I mean, the thing is, they held a lot of the Bears pass catchers under yards because the Bears threw for 70 total yards. So,
one of the things
That's
I'd
a
like
win.
to say about the defense that's pretty good that I didn't like put it into our game notes, but now thinking back on it, they actually did a good job at preventing
field scrambling.
field scrambling, which is something we talked about in our pregame.
Yep.
That
Did you
he
notice
only
they spied Quay Walker a lot?
Quay was a spy. They had a couple times where they just collapsed the pocket around him where they got the sack because everybody just crushed the offensive line until there was nowhere for him to go. There's one that it was like Gary and Preston and I think Reed all just pushed their blockers into fields until he fell down.
And it was nice to have. I think Quay is such a perfect fit for that QB spy position because he's so rangy and he's a really good tackler. At least he was in college. And I think it's just a perfect example of how to use your athletic players in space against a mobile quarterback. And the Packers have so routinely struggled with mobile quarterbacks that it's nice to see them finally. I mean, it feels like since Kaepernick, they haven't been able to handle a mobile quarterback. So I think that, it's nice that they are actually employing the athletes they have on defense in ways that make sense for the offense they're playing against.
Yeah. Yeah, and to hold Fields to 20 yards on 8 rushes was actually really good. And they should get credit.
Yeah, and I think that, pivoting to positive things on defense, since you started with that, I think my positive thing on defense is Preston Smith played really well today. Preston Smith, I think, was my player of the game. He had, so just for some numbers, he had led the team in tackles. He had 3 quarterback hits and 2 sacks. He had the defining stop of the game against Fields along with Jerron Reed. And, I think this is kind of the reason I think this is a big deal is through 2 games he's played quite well. And I'm not going to say anything, knock on wood, but technically if we're following the pattern of his career so far, this was supposed to be an off year. He had been, until this point, an every other year kind of guy, but he's starting the season hot.
Somebody must have told him it's really an odd year this year and not an even year.
Yeah.
But
just don't tell him it's an even year, and he'll have a good year. It's like the inverse of the San Francisco Giants from the early 2010s, where it's just every other year he can be good. But if he can start the year hot, they need him to play well. They don't. I mean, they're trotting Enagbare out there, and he's playing okay. And I saw Garvin out there as well. But neither of those guys are really ready to contribute at any kind of high level for a defense that has this kind of aspirations, at least. So they need odd year Preston, and so far it's been good.
Yeah, it has, and I should have paid more attention to it this week. No, last week they did do some of the bring both sub edge rushers in at the same time, but not exclusively. There are a couple times where Enagbare was out there with either Preston or Gary.
Yeah, I really want to see the snap counts.
I noticed Enagbare out there this week. And I can't remember.
I noticed him out there last week too. I want to see
if he was there with who he was out there with.
I want to see the snap counts for this game because I want to see how much the actual the sub edge rushers got to play because I feel like I didn't really notice them out there much.
I only noticed a couple plays where Enagbare was rushing from the left.
He was rushing from the right tackle.
I
saw him from the right tackle side a lot.
Yeah, right, going against the right tackle.
Yeah,
and
that's they put Garvin in. They put Garvin in against the left tackle, too.
So it was easier to spot him.
Yeah, and they put Garvin up against the left tackle. It seemed like he was kind of getting blown up off the ball, and a lot of big runs were going his way. Ah, well. C'est la vie. I'd probably want to see Tipa in there before him, personally. I think Tipa's played better. I know he's not as big as Garvin, and that's probably why they have Garvin in, but it's not like Garvin's doing a whole lot with that size. I don't know. I think I'd rather see Tipa. I think Tipa hypothetically is a worse edge setter, but in practice is probably better. I think he's just better at football. I don't know. That's my one qualm with the edge rusher position right now. I think I'd rather see Tipa than Garvin.
Yeah, it's hard to say who was gonna do anything. I'd really rather see them add somebody.
Yeah, but who? I just don't see anyone impactful. I mean, they could sign Kyler Fackrell off the Ravens practice squad, but
JPP.
I think JPP is washed. I think someone would have called already if he was going to play this year.
Or what's his name? Kennard.
Yeah, I mean,
another.
I don't know. I just feel like they're not going to make any kind of addition like that in free agency. At least maybe they'll trade for someone, but I don't know.
I think if that was going to happen, they would have done it by now.
Exactly. I think they're just going to have to deal with their edge group right now. But Preston Smith had a great game. Did you have any other positives for the defense that you wanted to point out?
I think those were the positives that I had. I did have one negative that I forgot to mention before.
Okay.
And
so you're going to ruin our end on a positive note deal that we were going for? You're just going to say nah.
Some kind of nasty topping on top of this sandwich.
Yeah, I don't like this outside olive you're putting.
It was
on
just that flea flicker
sandwich. Yeah, it is what it is. If they beat you on flea flickers, then you just shake their hand and dunk your head in some ice water and go home. Think about your life. I mean, yeah. Jair got beat on that one, I think.
That's what they did, like the angle he took, and that gave the extra yards.
Yeah, I mean, I think
EQ caught it.
It's really hard to tell because maybe he was supposed to take the deep shot, and he was supposed to have someone bracketing underneath, but that guy got drawn in by the flea flicker because he had his eyes in the backfield, and maybe Jair. There's really no way of knowing. But to add a little positive note, because you tried to yak our yum on a win, and by ending on a negative, Jair's pick was really good. And if you guys want to see something hilarious, go on Twitter and find at like the NBC or Sunday Night Football on NBC at SNF on NBC, I think it is. Did a awesome video of that Jair interception. Very impressive play with him calling it, and it's the funniest thing. Like, he's narrating his own like thought process, and he's making lots of sound effects. I can't really explain it, but it's very funny. So go and find that. I think it's at SNF on NBC.
And the way he closed on that play was really nice.
So fast, such a fast man. It's so nice having speedy speed in the secondary. That's what I was going for.
And that they came up with a reception. It wasn't an interception. It wasn't an interception that actually hit the ground.
Yeah, they actually caught an interception for the first time in their lives. What a concept. Hopefully we can do a little more of that going forward. But do you want to talk a little bit about the special teams really quick? Because 2 games in, very solid. Crosby, knock on wood, Crosby has not missed a kick yet.
The operation has been smooth.
The operation is smooth. The punt coverage and kick coverage has been smooth. They have been rallying to the football.
Play where I think Ford forced a fair catch on a punt.
Ford is good at that. Ford is good at that.
I think
he was questionable going into this game, by the way, with a hamstring injury. He was like a very late addition to the injury report, but he played very well.
Ford and Nixon together make a great pair of gunners and have been forcing a lot of fair catches or short returns.
And Pat O'Donnell was pumped to play his old team for the first
72-yard punt.
His first punt was a 72-yarder into the
even though it was a touchback, it was still a 52-yard net.
Hey, we take those. If you punt it 72 yards through the end zone, I don't really care that it went through the end zone, to be honest. But so the special teams, like from Pat O'Donnell to the gunners to the protectors to the rest of the coverage units, like I thought everyone rallied really well to the ball and stayed in their lanes. Lane discipline on punt coverage and kick coverage. What a concept! Who would have thought that that's how you're supposed to do it?
And the other, so the guys we brought in to be special team specialists, like Levitt also had a
Levitt's good. He's looking good on special teams. Yeah,
he's not a safety. Second half kickoff, Levitt, they did a good job of clogging up the return, and Levitt got the tackle.
Levitt was apparently talking mad smack to the Bears sidelines during the time between
nice kickoffs. Tackle on the kickoff return after one of the I think it was after Aaron Jones' second touchdown. So
and also for special teams, we fence, knock on wood, we do not say the other word anymore. We only say we fence. Amari Rodgers had a nice little 20-yard return. And I know he had a fumble. He picked it back up. It's fine. We're not too worried. We don't want to see it again, obviously, but who's worried? I'm not worried. It's fine.
Yeah, he was pretty decisive. I think there was one time where he called fair catch when he had some space,
and there was one time where he took a shot
to not take a fair catch, and then he got
buried. Yeah, I was like, you're on the sideline. Where do you think you're gonna go? Just fair catch it and fall out of bounds.
Yeah, but that was probably after he got it. Okay, I don't want any more of those Bisaccias.
Bisaccia screaming at him. he's returning for us right now. That's all I gotta say on that. But no, I thought Amari did it pretty well as a returner. You don't want to see those muffs, but I think he did pretty well. And so Weefence, is looking, infinitely better than last year so far. So
the coverage on the opponent's returns is worlds better.
Yeah. I guess as we're wrapping up here, do you want to talk about any other interesting kind of plays or anything that you saw that kind of stuck in your mind? I can start with one just as an example. Matt LaFleur said after the game that on the 2nd and 28 where they threw a little screen to Dobbs and everyone got out in front of him, and Dobbs ended up going for 20 yards, setting up a 3rd and manageable, 3rd and 8. They ended up scoring a touchdown on that play, and Matt LaFleur said that was the most important play of the game. So I think that is something that kind of might portend more usage for Dobbs in the future. The fact that he was able to make such an important play in the game at such a crucial time, I believe it was it 17-7 at that point? No, 16-7. But when he caught that 2nd and 20, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
2nd and 28 after the 3rd of the 3 sacks by the Bears.
Yeah, but do you remember what the score was?
That was when the pocket collapses and got the sack, and which was after.
Yeah, but do you remember what the score was when that happened?
Look.
It would have been, I think it would have been 17-7 because they ended up with 27. But so anyway, it was 17-7 when that happened, and LaFleur said that was the play of the game.
So let's see. It was...
I'm fairly certain it was 17-7. We don't need to spend too much time going over what exactly the score was. But the important part is I think that it really might demonstrate some more options or some more play calls specifically to get Dobbs the ball in the future, which I think will be an overall positive for the offense because they need to get these dynamic playmakers the ball, and they need to get them up to speed quickly.
Yeah, that was good. That was also the one where, after they got back, that was an important play because Dobbs did a really nice job of following his blockers.
Yep.
On that one,
he gave Nyman a nice little push in the back. He gave Nyman a nice little push in the back. And said, "Go on, block that guy, please block that guy."
That got him into reasonable 3rd down, where it's 3rd and 8 instead of like 3rd and 20, because they picked up 20 yards on that. And then Rodgers went to it. That was one of the times where he went to security blanket Cobb for
Cobb had a nice
conversion.
Cobb had a nice game. Cobb and Watkins. Shout out the veterans today because Cobb, Watkins, Lazard, Jones, Dillon, like all of them had great games. It was the first game I've seen where I was like, Sammy Watkins actually has juice. Last week I was like, man, this guy is cooked. He has nothing left in his legs. And then this week he was playing pretty well.
I like the fact that they took the shot there late.
That they
in the
were
game.
willing to actually take a shot play. Yes, it
felt
like that.
Well, when he got open, he broke open, and they got a big play out of that.
It felt like that shot play.
Two 3rd down conversions.
Yeah, 2 3rd down conversions. It seems like, but it felt like that shot play. It felt like that shot play had been like building and building. It was like they are gonna hit a shot play at some point today, and it finally hit right there in the 4th quarter. 55 yards to flip the field when they were up 2 scores. And eventually let them get into position to make it a 3-score game and really salt the game away.
But in terms
shout
of
out the vets today.
The 3rd down conversions on passing plays was all about the vets.
Yeah, it's
Cobb,
the guys he trusts.
Lazard,
Jones.
Yeah, but I just think about the wide receivers. You think Cobb had a couple, Lazard had at least one. I think Watkins had one.
Sammy had one. Not much.
Not counting. I guess maybe the shot play wasn't on 3rd, but he did have a 3rd down.
Not much Tunyon in this game at all, huh?
No, he had only 2 targets, 2 catches for 11 yards.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to go to him more in the second half because they got one to him, but it just didn't continue.
I'd like to see him used a little more in the offense, honestly, just because I think he is one of their better playmakers. But ease him back in. He's coming off injury.
And I noticed in the end they started using, or at least I noticed, I should say, Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes is getting
to hold up and blocking 1-on-1 against their edge rusher.
He's the reason that Rodgers' read option worked. He was blocking the down lineman.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I was saying shout out. I thought it was hilarious when Rodgers basically called his number for the 3rd down conversion there, deep in their own end.
What was it? Someone I saw was calling them Shanahanigans. which I think is just a perfect aim because that's just such a little. What are the odds Aaron Rodgers is going to run a read option on 3rd and short? Like, it's a smart play because no one thinks he's going to run that.
It worked perfectly.
And it set up the
closeout
of the game.
The defender, broke in and gave him enough of a lane to get outside and get the first.
Yeah, but those are our kind of miscellaneous additions to like our thoughts on what we thought was interesting. Dad, do you have anything else to add before we kind of close up?
Oh, so sort of like closing thoughts. One thing I
like
thought about this is that this reminded me a little bit of last year's game 2 against the Lions. After the total stinker in week 1.
Time is a flat circle.
At halftime of that, so except this game wasn't as bad as week 2 last year. It's like last week's stinker wasn't as bad as last year's stinker week 1. But in week 2, we ended up beating the Lions pretty handily, but we were still trailing at halftime 17-14.
Yep.
To the Lions.
And they both ended on picks.
Before we finally put it together and put it away. So here was when we took control a little earlier.
Yeah.
And essentially did most of our dirty work in the second quarter and beginning of the third to get control of that game.
Sorry, go ahead.
And that had one other sort of big picture is that it seemed like the O-line was getting it together more and more as the game went on. They gave up 3 sacks, but they were all before halftime. And they didn't give up any more sacks in the second half. And very few pressures. I mean, if you remember, thinking about it, there weren't that many pressures later in the game.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they're getting their feet under them, and they'll continue to hopefully continue improving, which they'll need next week.
And it's easier.
Tampa defense
Tampa's
has been looking good these first 2 weeks.
Tough matchup. That's going to be so hard. We'll talk about that more on our Thursday night preview. Every Thursday night we do a pregame for the upcoming game week. So please check us out there. We'll be putting that out Thursday late evening. You can listen to it Friday morning on your ride to work. But yeah, please check that out. We'll be talking about Tampa this week because that's going to be a heck of a matchup. I guess my closing thoughts and summary were, for a team with the aspirations that the Packers have, you'd like them to be a little more convincing in games against bad teams. But then you think about how 3 teams really, really blew it this weekend in the fourth quarter, specifically tonight, or specifically on Sunday, that is. And you're just happy to come out with a win. And 1-1 does not feel as bad as 0-2.
Teams with high aspirations and teams that looked dominant for part of the game totally screwed the pooch by the end.
This is true. There are a lot of teams that wish they could have come out with an ugly win tonight.
Yep.
The Ravens, I'm sure, wish they came out with an ugly win. The Browns wish they came out with an ugly win. The Raiders wish they came out with an ugly win. There's a lot of teams.
The Rams came out with an uglier win than our win.
Exactly, versus the Falcons, who are just as maybe a little better than the Bears. But it's just nice to come out.
That they're running neck and neck.
I think the Falcons are substantially better than the Bears. I don't think that's that hot to take. But the point being, it's nice to win a game, even if it wasn't the most convincing. But anyway, that is our post game for Packers' victory over the Bears here in week 2. Happy to be podcasting after a win. If you like what you heard, we do 2 podcasts a week, Thursday nights and Sunday nights, or Monday nights if the game is on a Monday night. So feel free to check those out. Like we said earlier, check us out on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. Check us out on YouTube, Father Son Packers Podcast. Any streaming platform of your choice. We will be putting out 2 episodes a week for the rest of the season. But yeah, until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.